Sitting next to me is a very, very special woman of God, a dear friend who's recently written a magnificent book, awesome book, The God Who Answers by Fire, a Jewish saga. And here's what I wrote about her. Jun Vulk is one of the most sold-out, dynamic Jewish believers in Jesus I've ever met. Her commitment, zeal, and faith in her God is contagious. For anyone seeking ultimate truth and purpose for their life, this book is must reading. Would you please welcome my dear friend and author of The God Who Answers by Fire, Jun Vulk. Hi there.
Good to be with you.
We live about 8 miles away from each other, and love you and Shelley, your husband. Don't get to see enough of you, though. I'm on the road all the time, but I'm so glad you're on the program today.
And I'm so glad you have me, and I just need to thank you in front of all the audience for being our friend, for doing my mom and dad's memorial service, and for always being there for us.
Well, we love you and Shelley.
Thank
we
you,
absolutely
and we love
do.
you and your dear wife and daughter.
Yeah, and your husband's here, my wife's back there, and we're all going to go out afterwards and catch up. Jun, a Jewish saga, The God Who Answers by Fire. These have been going off the shelves like hotcakes. God's anointing is on this book.
It's really amazing, Jonathan. Arthur Katz, who was a dear friend of yours and my husband's spiritual father, who's in heaven, read the rough manuscript, and he said, Jun, I cried. It's a Jewish saga. And I thought I would name the book, Father, Please, I Really Want to Know, because when I called out to see if Jesus was the Messiah, the Son of God, truly the only God that's true is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And the God Who Answers by Fire is the name of the book, because when I called out to find out if in fact Jesus was the God of Israel, the Son of the living God, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, fire came around my shade.
Taken from Elijah and
Yes.
the prophets of Baal.
Yes, you call upon your name, on the name of your God, Elijah said, to the prophets of Baal. And I will call upon the name of my God, and the God who answers by fire. He is God.
What a great story. Jun, rewind and tell us a little bit about your background. It's always fascinating for me as a Jewish believer to hear how other Jewish believers came to be believers.
Well, my background, Jonathan, came from a Jewish family, both sides, as far back as we know. And my husband Shelley's background is from an Orthodox Jewish family, both sides, as far back as we know. And Shelley and I were raised and born in New York City.
You can't take the, you can take the New York out of New York, but not the New York, however it goes. But you can leave New York, but New York doesn't leave you.
Yes, it's like, can anything good come out of Brooklyn? Anyway, Shelley and I were married for 10 years. He was very successful in the business world, vice president of a stock brokerage firm and a branch manager. We lived in a suburban area of Connecticut. And Shelley's younger brother came to the knowledge of Jesus and came back to tell our family that he, in fact, was the Son of God and the Messiah. And when he told my mother-in-law and father-in-law, they
didn't jump for joy.
No, they left the house very upset. And Shelley spit on the floor, took my boy's hands, you know Scotty well, and my son Dean, and picked our daughter Susie up out of the high chair and spit on the floor and left the house. And
this is so hard to believe because I've known Shelley as a believer. He's a dynamic man of God. I can't even picture this, but I'm trying.
And that's what's so amazing, Jonathan, how God changed his heart. And I listened to Paul share many things in the scriptures, and I didn't hear very much except when he said to me, Jun, do you believe that God exists? And that stayed with me because Scott had come home from Hebrew school maybe a week or two before saying, "Mom, does God exist?" And I remember thinking, how am I going to answer my son? I didn't know. And so I said...
June, you have to explain this because I think it's confusing for people watching to imagine Jewish people not knowing if there's a God, because we're the people of the book. Judaism, a Jew is a praiser of God. So I want you to elaborate on that. How can somebody be Jewish and not believe in God? This is our history.
Yes. I can't say that I didn't desire to believe in God, but for a Jew, as you well know, God is, if he is, very impersonal, too big to be interested in you or I, too many problems. If he exists, he has so many other things on his heart and his mind, which really
very
isn't
distant, very
distant, yes, and impersonal. Yeah. And so the only way we really can come to a personal relationship with the living God is the same way as Hannah did, or Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob did, or the prophets of old, or the barren women that cried out to the Lord. Because God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So the personal relationship comes when our eyes are opened to the Messiah, because he is the one
It's not
who
about
opens
religion.
it. No.
So June, how do you get from not even knowing if there is a God to where you are now? What happened?
I called out one night and I said, "Father, if you can hear me, please answer me. Was Jesus your son? Father, please, I really want to know, was Jesus your son?" And I looked at my shade by the window, and fire was going all around the shade, and I was thinking, what's happening? There's fire, and the shade isn't being consumed, and the fire went all the way around the room, and I felt an extreme pressure on top of my head.
This is an immediate response to the prayer?
Immediate. And I thought, wow, June, this is just your imagination. I felt chills going up and down my legs, and I was still thinking, this is just your imagination, when something entered me and cleaned up everything inside of me, and my tongue started to gyrate up and down uncontrollably, Jonathan, and out of my mouth were coming words that I had never heard. I didn't know them. And
Praise
those
God.
words were, "Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever." And that prayer was said 3 times.
Now, June, that's a prayer every Christian watching knows. But you're from a Jewish background.
That's right.
So did you know that prayer?
I never heard it. Jonathan, that was 35 years ago.
Wow.
And my whole being prayed the prayer the 3rd time as the words were coming out of my mouth. And after the prayer was said the 3rd time, the pressure left my head, the fire left the room the same way as it came in. But I was different. The God who answers by fire touched me, and I knew he was alive. And I just said, "Please, Father, let Shelley know the truth, for without him, I'm nothing."
Now, I've got to say something here. This is why people who are watching that have been believing for, in some cases, 10, 15, 20, 30 years for a loved one, and have reached a place where they're wondering, might only been a few months, can God really change this person's life? Because on the outward, they see this hard person. I'm the only believer in my family, and yet your testimony shows that God can, I'm feeling the anointing as I'm talking, that God can change a life instantaneously, in a moment, that nothing's impossible for him.